Well, good day to everybody, and thank you so much for taking a little bit of time out of your day to spend some time with us here at ManageEngine. I'm going to guess that the reason that you took a little bit of time was because of the topic that we have at hand. I don't know if all of you have been keeping in track with what Microsoft has been offering with regard to increasing password controls, but we're going to talk about some of that today, and we're going to have kind of a discussion about where we are today with our environments and where we're going to be in our environments, and what is the best angle to make sure that we are securing our passwords moving forward. My name is Derek Melber, and I will be your host as well as your speaker today. Logistics about today: this is being recorded, so please, if you would check out your inbox in the next day or so, you should be receiving an email with a link to the recording. And please do share that with anybody that you feel would also be interested in this content. Certainly that's something that one of the reasons why we do actually record it is not just for your benefit, but for others that you want to share it with. We do have some people answering questions, my colleagues. You can't hear them, but certainly they're there. So as we go through the material, if you have any questions, please post those questions using your GoToWebinar panel, and they will address those in line. I think those are pretty much the rules of engagement. To give you a little bit of idea of who you're listening to, again, my name is Derek Melber. I'm the Chief Technology Evangelist here at the ADSolutions team at ManageEngine. And really what my role is to go around the world, talking with administrators, talking with organizations, helping them understand Active Directory to a deeper level, to get them to be more efficient and, in the end, also more secure with how they deal with Active Directory and their entire network infrastructure. I've been an MVP now, I think, 17 times, both in Active Directory and group policy. So I know a little bit about the environment, and hopefully I can share some stuff with you today, as well as answer your questions moving on. I do want to talk about some resources that we have available for you. We have been working hard, especially over the last year, developing a tremendous amount of resources, and these resources are 100% free for you. So let's actually jump into some free resources. If you come to our website, ManageEngine.com, and go to support, you'll see that we have some blogs, and these blogs we actually post on a weekly basis. And if you come in here and, let's say, for example, you just want to search on Active Directory, you can get dedicated blogs solely for Active Directory. If you want to search on security, you can do that. If you want to search on other topics, you can do that. This is also a good place for you to find out other information that we'll be having soon. So here's another webinar on password management techniques. Here's another series of webinars that I will actually be doing. There are 4 in the next 2 weeks solely on Windows and Active Directory security. So please come out here when we're done with this webinar, click on this, and you can actually get to a link and you can sign up for those. I do many of these topics around the world. I just had a 1.5-hour workshop in Poland late last week, and it was absolutely awesome, the exchange of information. So I'll be bringing some of that information to you in these 4 workshops, or these 4 webinars that are coming up. So that's certainly something you can come take advantage of. Secondly, if you come to products and hover over products like you see here and go to the lower left-hand corner, you'll see security hardening for Active Directory. This is a site that was built just over 3 years ago. And the reason it was built is in kind of reaction to some technologies that Microsoft was talking about, which is JIT and GIA that you see here. And I found these technologies to be very cumbersome, very confusing, very complicated, and I really didn't think that too many organizations were going to latch onto them. And come to find out, that's the truth. I've found 3 organizations in 4+ years of asking the world if they use it, 3 organizations that have actually implemented it. So it's really not something that a lot of us use. However, the concept of security hardening is very important. So we built this arrangement of security areas, and if you come click on any of them, you'll see dedicated blogs to that particular topic. And this is something that we have spent a tremendous amount of time on over the years, and it's absolutely free for you. This is a way where you can come in, and get immediate direction on how to secure all these areas within Active Directory and your Windows servers. So please come take a look at this. Amazing information all in one location and free. One more final resource I want to point out to you from our website is this Dummies book. The Dummies book obviously is a book geared towards information transfer at a certain level. And this is one that we wrote just about a year and a half ago. And the whole purpose of this book is to open the eyes of administrators and the people that administrators work with to show them the importance of privileged access and how we must control this. So please come download this, share it with others, share the link, share the PDF with others. It's just a great resource for you to come get additional information about how to secure privileged access. A final resource I want to point you to is actually my email address. I am constantly on my phone and my computer looking at emails, and I address emails as soon as I can. If I can't answer it, I have a huge group of colleagues that I work with, both at ManageEngine and outside, that know a lot more than I do, and we can actually try to get you answers to your questions. So please rely on us for questions around Active Directory, group policy, security, Windows, endpoints, all of that stuff. Finally, let's talk a little bit about our world tour and our user conferences coming up. Our world tour is coming towards the end, obviously, towards the year, but we actually have 3 more stops here in the United States. We'll be in LA, Houston, and then Atlanta, and that will be in mid-November. And then finally, we will be in Chicago, actually, in 2 weeks for our user conference. These user conferences are very engaging. We really work hard to put them together. If you come to our main landing page, you can see here and you can register. There are 2 days of ingrained information about ManageEngine, the current and the future of where we are going with our solutions. So please come out. If you can't find information on our website about these events, email me and I'll point you to the right place. I would love to see you in person. These events are extremely engaging. I will be at all of them speaking, and the other speakers are amazing as well. So please come and join us in these events that we put together for you. All right, well, that gets us through the beginning. Let's get to the meat. I want to talk about passwords, and I want to talk about passwords from a standpoint of where we've been, where we are, and where we're going. I was enlightened with some of the information that I got from Microsoft last week, or 2 weeks ago actually, at Ignite. I'm sure that some of you were actually there, and I'll be adding some of those highlights in as well as we go through. But let's talk about kind of where we've been with passwords. If we look at the default password policy, this is kind of where we've been and kind of where we are right now. We have this default domain policy, which is by default, and this is where our password policy is located. So if I jump into my interface here and I go to my domain controller and I head over to group policy, you'll see that I have my default domain policy. If I edit this thing and go down to where my password policy is located, you'll see that this is my password policy. So this is what we have for the password policy. Now, what I want to do is talk a little bit about how this works, because the password policy is one of the most complex areas in Active Directory and group policy, and I still find that administrators, even though it's been, 18 years after Active Directory has been released, still don't fully understand this. So let's talk about, first of all, especially since we're dealing primarily with attendees that are in the US, let's say that it's that time of year where you're being audited. It doesn't matter what audit it is, they're going to ask you for a representation of the current password policy for the domain. Now, many of you will take a screenshot of this. Many of you will come in here to Group Policy Management Console, and you'll go to Settings, and you'll come here to Security Settings, Password Policy, and you'll take a screenshot of this, and you'll say, great, this is what we have for the password policy. But I'm going to caution you on doing this. And the reason I'm going to caution you is this information is worthless. This information doesn't guarantee anything about what the password policy is. Now, the correct method to actually get a report of the password policy for your domain is to run a built-in tool. It's SecPol, SecPol.msc. It's built into every operating system, and it actually gives you a view of what the current password policy is for that machine. Now, let's put this down here. So this is what many of you report on, and this is the reality of what we have for our password policy. You will notice there is a distinct difference. The distinct difference is we don't actually have a password policy. We don't require a password. So as I go through different concepts with security, and you'll see this in the series coming up, what I focus on is first you have to run a report. And that report has to be correct. Because if I am making decisions based on this information, my decisions will be radically different than if I'm making decisions based on the correct information. So you must run reports correctly in order to evaluate what you have and determine what you should have. All right, so that's the concept around reporting. Now let's talk about logistics. And what I want to do is I want to pose some questions to you to get through these logistics. How many password policies can I have in a single domain using group policy? Now let's run through a test. Let me show you what I mean. So I'm going to come here to Active Directory users and computers, and let's look at the structure that we have. So here we have some common OUs that most organizations have, such as finance, HR, whatnot. So I'm going to come to, let's go to finance, okay? And I want all of my finance users to have a different, more stringent or a stronger password policy than everyone else. So I come back here to group policy, I go to finance, and I'm going to create a new GPO called the finance password policy. Now, in the finance password policy, I go down to where the password policy is configured, and I'm just going to define a couple of new settings. So we want the minimum password length to be 14, and we want to absolutely ensure that we're using complexity requirements. Great. Now my question to you is, if, let's say, Elvis, who's in finance, resets his password, what is going to be the minimum password length? Well, I can tell you the answer is not 14. Because the answer to our question, how many password policies can you have in the same domain using group policy, is 1. You can only have 1. I call it one size fits all. So this concept around this can be very complicated, because if I go back and I look at the details, this really looks like I have configured this password policy to be correct. So what I need to do is I need to understand how this works. Well, let me show you. If I go back to the finance password policy and I go to where I just configured those settings, you will notice, right, here are my 2 settings, that these 2 settings fall under, and if you go up here in the group policy, computer configuration. So these settings actually apply to computers, not users. Users are down here. So this is a computer-based group of settings, not user. Since all of these users aren't computers, they will never see the settings in the group policy object. Only computers. So if I have a computer in this OU, that computer will be affected by the group policy setting, and the local SAM of accounts will have a different password policy. That's how it works. So there is only an option for 1 password policy in a single domain. Now, I can link a GPO to the domain controllers, I can link a GPO to the OU, and the reality is it will not change the domain password policy. Neither one of these will result in a password policy change for domain users. It just doesn't work that way. I've been saying this for years. The only way to modify the password policy using group policy in a domain is in a GPO linked to the domain node. That's it. That's the only way to do it. All right. Now, we also have the settings. Now, let's go back. And if we look at the possible options for settings that we have history, age, length, complexity. My question to you is, based on these settings, can I increase the security of the password policy beyond what's available in that interface? Can I add settings? And the answer is no, you cannot add settings. Microsoft does not extend the account policies or the password policy so you can increase your overall structure and posture of passwords. It just doesn't work that way. All right, so now that we've got this point, using group policy, one password policy per domain, and we can't extend it. But can we actually have multiple password policies in the same domain? The answer is yes, but not with group policy, with something called fine-grained password policies. But keep in mind, these are not configured with group policy. They're not configured by default, and unless you have the admin center, the only way that you can administer these is using ADSEdit. So these become a totally different concept. Now, let's jump into ADSEdit, right? ADSEdit, and let me show you where these things are configured. So if I come down here to my default naming context, I go down here to System, open up System, and I have my password policy container. I can right-click on this, and it will work me through this little bit of a wizard, right? Give it a name, give it a priority, right? And it will ask me questions that are in the same genre of what you have for the password policy and group policy. And in the end, you ended up with an object. So this is how you can have multiple password policies in the same domain. So my question to you is, how many can you have in the same domain using fine-grained password policies? You know, I'm sure it's a binary number somewhere, like 128 or something, but I've never seen an organization hit it. But you can have multiple. So now IT can have one password policy, finance another one, and executives a different one. This is how you can have multiple password policies in the same domain. Well, how do you apply them to the users? Well, there's something called PSO. There's PSO applied, and that's an attribute of the PSO stands for password setting object, which is a fine-grained password policy, and you have to go in and configure a group for that entry. So it's not an access control list, it's actually an attribute of the object. You don't do it in group policy, it's not distributed through group policy. It's actually an object in Active Directory. A little confusing, I know, but this is the way that it works. So with fine-grained password policies, we can have multiple password policies in the same domain. Another key question, can I increase or expand on the controls? The answer is no. So the same settings that you had in group policy over here, right? So here's my group policy. The same settings that are available using your group policy object password policies are the exact same settings you have in fine-grained password policies. Now, why is that important? Well, that's important because everybody knows the rules of engagement. And if we all know the rules of engagement, that means the attackers know the rules of engagement, and they can catch us at our weak points. What are our weak points? Well, our weak points are that we are under attack because they know what the rules are. According to Microsoft, this is from 2 weeks ago. This is in Azure. Microsoft blocked 1.3 billion authentication attempts in August alone. Wow. Wow. That's massive. But I want you to think about one thing for me. I want you to take a step back, close your eyes, and think about something. This is in the cloud. Who has access to the cloud? Everyone. Do you really get these many authentication attempts on premise? The answer is no. Keep that in mind as we move forward. The cloud has more accessibility than your on-premise. So it makes sense it's going to have more attempts at attacks and also more successful, right? It's just the way it is. So what are they attacking? Many different things, right? Now, if we look at traditional attacks, we have dictionary, brute force, and rainbow table attacks. What does that look like? Let me show you a tool. Many of you have probably seen a tool like this before, but I'm going to open up a tool called Kane. Now, Kane is a password cracking tool and allows me to sniff the network, gather passwords, and then send them over to the password cracker so that I can actually run attacks on them. This is how easy this is. You'll see here that I can do dictionary attacks, which is utilizing one or more attack dictionaries. Now, these attack dictionaries aren't like Webster dictionaries. These are dictionaries that the attackers created by primarily using character replacements. So a 0 becomes an O, a 1 becomes an exclamation point, a 3 becomes an E, stuff like that. So these can be quite large, millions of entries in these attack dictionaries. So what we want to do is negate our users from using words in a dictionary. That makes sense. Then we have the concept of a brute force attack. Now, what a brute force attack does is something totally different than what a attack is on your dictionary attack. So if I come in here to a brute force attack, you'll see that there is a character space that you must select. Now, what I want to do is tie this to what you probably have for your password policy. So let's go back to your password policy, or a common password policy, which would be right here. Let's go here. All right, so here are my password policy settings. Complexity. Do you have complexity set? I'm going to guess the answer is yes. All right, so you have complexity set. What does that mean? Well, complexity means that you're going to use 3 of the 4 types of characters, force them, lowercase, uppercase, number, and special. You must have at least 6 characters, can't use logon name or username in the password. Now, if I evaluate the 4 characters types, right? Lowercase, uppercase, number, and special, which 3 of those 4 are your users going to use? Now, I ask this question around the world, and I get the same answer from every admin around the world. Lowercase, uppercase, and number. Which means if I'm using an attack tool, why would I ever pick special characters to break into a password? It's just going to take me longer to do that. So I'm going to pick a smaller set of characters, which is going to take me less time to break into passwords. Now, also, length of password. I'm going to guess that most of you on this webinar, your organization has a password requirement somewhere between 6 and 9. Why is that important? Again, if I can limit as an attacker what I know about the reality, then it's going to take me less time to actually break into these passwords. Now, you'll notice here that with this arrangement, breaking into an NTLM hash, it's going to take approximately 40 years. But watch this. If I just make one alteration to a standard setting in most password policies, okay, watch this, just lowercase alpha, but now I'm going to bump it to 20 characters, but only 20 characters. Everyone knows it's a 20-character password with lowercase alpha. Watch this. 6 times 10 to the 13 years. Holy moly. How impressive is that change in securing your password? Pretty impressive. So what we need to consider is, how can we increase password security? Well, first of all, don't allow dictionary attacks. Make sure that you add special characters so that users must use something that attackers aren't considering. Because the reality is most aren't using brute force attacks, they're using rainbow table attacks. So they have a pre-calculated hash table that they're using against hashes. Again, the rainbow table is nothing more than character set and length of password. That's it. So if we can actually alter our password controls, we can increase our security pretty quickly. Now, these are some of the kind of historical ways, which are still used, but a newer way is called pass the hash. Now, the way pass the hash works is the attacker, usually outside attacker, gets a hold of a administrative hash. Then they move laterally and they move upward, trying to get more administrative hashes until they get domain admin credentials. According to Microsoft, as you will see this week in our security series, it takes only 48 hours to get domain admin credentials once one administrator account is jeopardized. Pretty scary. 48 hours. We need to protect against this. Those of you that don't know much about pass the hash, my suggestion is that you go out to www.microsoft.com/PTH. There are a couple of white papers there. Read them. Secure your environments. I'm begging you to do that, okay? Please do that, because we must protect against these attacks. The primary way to protect against pass the hash, don't make anyone an administrator that doesn't have to be, and restrict where they log on, and don't cache hashes or tickets. That's the best way. You cannot eliminate it completely, though. That's one of the big problems. So what we need to do is we need to protect our passwords. How do we do that? Why do we do that? Well, again, according to Microsoft, 81% of breaches are due to passwords in some way. Default, weak, stolen, somehow, some way. 81%. If we can actually change our posture and our passwords, we can reduce 80% of successful breaches. That's a pretty impressive number. So what do we do moving forward? Well, here's what Microsoft did, okay? Now, here's where we're going to go back, and I'm going to talk about the difference between Azure and on-prem. I'm going to guess that everyone on this webinar still has on-premise Active Directory, okay? And I'm going to assume that, let's say, 60–70% of you have a hybrid environment where you also have Azure or Office 365 and Active Directory on-prem. So this is what Microsoft is doing to secure passwords. It's called the password protection. It's brand new. It was introduced 2 weeks ago. Notice, they are allowing for banned passwords. Look at this. You can customize this list. It also comes in the background with banned passwords from Microsoft. There's 500 in the list, and the list is dynamic. Microsoft will not tell anyone how it gets the list or the names that are on the list. They told a group of us that they didn't want to tell us because then the attackers know 500 passwords that they're negating. Let's be honest and real. You're telling me the 500 is going to make a dent? 500 is nothing. We need 5 million. We need to negate common passwords. We need to force users to put in passwords that can't be hacked through a dictionary. This is ridiculous, in my opinion. This is 0.01% of what we need to do. But this is Microsoft's attempt in the cloud. This is only in the cloud. Okay. You can actually protect on-premise Active Directory, but you have to set up a proxy and you have to have all these other things in place. So you have to open up your inside environment to the internet world through a proxy. I don't think anybody wants to do that. So this is their attempt. I don't think this goes far enough. Also, when this is engaged and the user puts in a wrong password, they get this generic message. Sorry, it didn't work. Try again. Wow. So users have been fighting with the password policy forever. Now you have an additional restraint and you're not telling them what it is. Users are going to be frustrated and you're going to have a big problem on your hand with dealing with end users. And you're probably not going to engage this because of that. Let me give you a solution that doesn't deal with that. Because guess what? Using sign languages and scroll noises and doing all these weird things and forcing users to meet certain criteria without telling them is not the solution. The solution is an integrated function to what you have today. I don't want you to change what you have today. I want to layer on top of what you have today. I don't want to force you into the cloud in Azure. I want you to rely on what you have on-prem because that's where you've lived and that's where your users have lived for 18 years, probably more, right? Why reinvent the wheel when all we have to do is improve the wheel? That's all we have to do. So what we have provided for you, let's actually jump into the real interface here. What we have provided for you is a way that you can actually go in, layer on top of your current password policy. Doesn't matter if it's group policy, fine-grained password policy, it doesn't matter. And we're giving you the option to force special characters. We're giving you the option to include a dictionary that you get to customize. If you want to use patterns like Microsoft is using inside of their Azure word list, you can do that. This is really where the power comes in. You also can disallow certain number of characters, 5 from the previous password, right? Disallow the use of 5 characters from the old password. That way they can't use password 1, password 2. They have to use something totally different. These are powerful configurations. But honestly, if I throw this at an end user and I don't tell them what the rules of engagement are, they're going to hate me. Watch this. If I am a user and I need to reset my password, right? Watch this. I tell the user what the rules of engagement are. And when I type in the new password, notice these check marks? They're telling me that I've met that requirement. This is engaging. This is easy. They don't have to go to some custom environment. They don't have to go to some weird portal. It's right here on the interface that they're familiar with, the GINA, the password change interface. I'm not forcing anything different. All I'm doing is increasing passwords and enabling the user to successfully maneuver through that. So notice I can show the password requirements and I can even customize this view. Look at this. You get to customize everything along the way. This is the power of a solution like this. This is where we need to be moving. I do not believe that creating a list of 20 words using Microsoft's additional 500 words is going to increase security at all. It is a blip on the radar. We need powerful solutions that are going to allow us to really make an impact on increasing the overall password security. But again, you probably have a hybrid environment. How do you get this password that's now this awesome password that's on-prem into the cloud? Well, that's easy. AD Self-Service Plus synchronizes it for you. Done. You just synchronize it. Done. So now that you have an awesome password on-prem, because the user knows how to change it on-premise, it automatically synchronizes to whichever cloud app you want, and you're done. You now have great security everywhere with your passwords. This is the way that we need to deal with passwords. This is a real security solution. And it works where you work primarily today, which is on-premise. Yes, I know you have a hybrid, but most organizations that I have seen, most, are in a hybrid environment, and they're primarily still using Active Directory on-premise for their identity and access management. Let's continue to do that, because the solutions that Microsoft have up in the cloud are weak. They're pathetic. They are not good security. So instead, use a solution that gets you to that next level. Use a solution that works with what you have right now with group policy and the fine-grained password policies. Force multiple characters, all types of characters. Force passwords greater than 15 characters, right? Get information to be synchronized everywhere to where it's perfect for the user. This is where we need to be. So we've gone over a lot of information today. What are my takeaways? First, if you don't know about Pass the Hash, go to the Microsoft website /PTH and read up on it to secure your environment. Next, a I'm going to give you guys a challenge. Everyone likes a good challenge. I want you to get a stopwatch. You have one on your phone, and start it. And then I want you to go to Products, AD Self-Service Plus, and I want you to download AD Self-Service Plus, install it, configure it for at least one endpoint, and get that endpoint's password improved. It's going to take you less than 30 minutes. That's how awesome and easy a tool like AD Self-Service Plus is. 30 minutes or less. And now you have robust, amazing password security in your environment, starting with on-premise, moving up into the cloud, instead of forcing users into the cloud, which they don't understand, and then you writing back to Active Directory. That just doesn't make any sense. You're going the wrong direction. We need to stay where we're familiar and then move that into the cloud, because that's best for our users, and it's best for us to understand how things are moving along. So I hope this information has been valuable to you. I will mention again that we have 4 webinars starting in a series that will get you through configuring Active Directory and your Windows servers security. Please go register for those. I showed you where those were on our website. I hope to see you there. For some of you, I hope to see you in one of our AD seminars or our user conference that's in the US. And if I don't see you there, maybe I'll see you at RSA or Ignite next year. But I hope to see you coming up. Please go register. That's my email. Send me questions if you have any questions. I want to thank all of you for your attention. I want to thank all of my colleagues for answering your questions as we went through. I see that all of the questions have been answered. If you do have a follow-up question because something came up, please email me. Email the events team here. We'd be more than happy to address that. Keep an eye out for the recording. And with that, I'm going to let you get back to work. I'm going to get back to work myself on some other stuff. And for myself and the rest of the AD Solutions team, thank you for your time and have a good rest of your day.